Good morning. I'm Todd Baldwin. I'm with the Kalispel Tribe. I'm one of the project managers that has been working on this bullfrog removal project over the last 3 seasons. I was asked today to stop by and share some successes and challenges and give you guys an update, and also thought I would throw in some next steps that we're hoping to start working on next year. I'm not going to get into the biology of bullfrogs, except to reemphasize their destructive impact on native species that utilize the same habitats. I like this picture because it shows that bullfrogs have no problem eating other frogs, which is why they're so destructive. Thought before I started, I'd do some acknowledgements. Like to acknowledge the Bureau of Indian Affairs for their continued funding and support. Megan Turnock, who spent 5 years with us as a biologist, who is now with WDFW. She was an important contributor to this work while she was with the tribe. WDFW for their help, and they'll be important with the next steps work for sure. Erica Crespi with WSU, her and her team have been working on habitat monitoring, and have spent a lot of time out in the project area. And then finally, Raymond Livingston and his crews for their tremendous work with the removal effort. This is a picture of one of the wetlands that we constructed in the Cusick Meadow areas. And I'll get into the importance of that wetland construction work as we move through the presentation here. So most people, when they hear Kalispel Tribe or Kalispel, they think Montana. We're actually about 45 miles north of Spokane in Northeast Washington. If you zoom into where that star is at, you end up in the Cusick Meadow area, and the project area, which we refer to, I'm not sure if you can see my cursor or not, but we refer to this as Upper Trimble. And this has been our primary focus for bullfrog removal over the last 3 years. It's also had a significant amount of wetland habitat work completed since the tribe purchased this property. This slough that runs into the Ponderay River is actually diked up here just west of Highway 20, which helps keep invasives from re-entering the project area. I'll elaborate more on these white patches further into the slides, but these are the wetlands that the tribe has actually created throughout this, what was actually a hayfield. I thought I'd go through some removal history just to give folks an idea of what we've managed to accomplish in here. Removals began in 2022, where we hired 2 technicians who spent the summer testing several different methods, ranging from high-powered pellet rifles to a small shocking barge. Although not all the methods were successful, the crew still managed to remove 1,500 frogs at the time. We didn't keep track of tadpoles, so this number only represented actual frog removals, where future efforts, we actually kept track of the number of tadpoles removed. Due to some challenges I'll cover in the next slide, we decided to try our hand at contracting the work out, and we were successful with that. We ended up hiring a couple who used what we learned in 22 to remove almost double the frogs in 2023, with a total removal of over 1,500 frogs and tadpoles. This graph I included on the right, I actually stole from one of Megan's presentations. And it shows number of frogs versus number of tadpoles, and then timing of when they were catching the most frogs. They also removed egg masses as they would find them that were bullfrog egg masses, but we didn't include those in the graph. There were usually you only end up removing a few when you're out. And I don't know if that's an indication of breeding success or if they're just harder to find than what we realize. Let's see. We went ahead and incorporated what we learned in 2023 to last season's work and put more effort into these later, just mid-August to mid-September time period, resulting in just over 3,200 removals. But what was odd about this was there were very few tadpoles removed. I think the contractor had 20 on his report. So the rest of them, the remaining were actually frogs. Removal counts for this summer should give us a better indication of whether we see these bullfrog numbers actually falling or if that trend changes. So I'm very interested in knowing if if we're going to see significantly less frogs killed. There can only be so many in these sloughs, but how many is the real question. All right, so part of the ask of this presentation was to cover some successes and challenges of the project. I think one of our greatest successes is we've definitely learned how to remove bullfrogs of all life stages. I think we're pushing just over 10,000 removals with all the numbers. The other thing we learned was high-powered pellet rifle was one of the most efficient ways of removing frogs, and then hand nets were the best method for removing tadpoles. And then one of the other successes that I feel is worth noting is the first year removals, we saw almost no native frogs in 2022 during the bullfrog removal efforts. And I think when I say almost none, I think we saw one tree frog and one toad. So they were few and far between compared to the 2024 field season when they were seeing and hearing them almost nightly. So I think that's a great indication that as you start to reduce populations of invasive significantly, in certain cases, you start to see natives respond almost immediately. One of the techniques we use to locate adult bullfrogs is when they're calling early in the spring. Makes it pretty easy to actually find them and eradicate them. The number of bullfrog calls we've been hearing, or we heard last year, has been reduced significantly. And that was confirmed with some other audio moth recording efforts. So what can be challenging when it comes to the joys of bullfrog removal? As I mentioned, we started out in 22 by hiring 2 technicians. And I learned when you're a manager that works days, having a crew that works nights makes for a really long summer. It might have actually gotten easier with consecutive years, but at least for us, contracting this work has really become a no-brainer from efficiency and a cost per effort standpoint. Another challenge we found, which I don't think anybody really saw coming, was electroshocking was not successful in anything we tried. We even tried it in a pond on a golf course where they had bullfrogs, and we know it does work in some conditions, but we just didn't have success with it. Bullfrogs are tough, and if you can get close enough to them to shock them, you're close enough to either net them or shoot them. So that's definitely been most effective. I was talking with a WDFW employee a month or so ago, and they had found the same thing. So we didn't know that at the time, but I guess conditions have to be just right for electroshocking frogs. We were really hoping we could use it to eradicate tadpoles, but it doesn't seem to have much effect on them either. And then lastly, as I showed in the previous slide, late summer, when frogging is the best, depending on what your moisture conditions have been during the summer, depends on if you have any water left during that time to get around in your kayaks or your small boats before the vegetation takes over. And so like last year we had 100, I believe over 100 days without rain, consecutive days without rain. And so the contractors almost waited too long, but they were still able to, get 3,200 frogs essentially. So it wasn't a complete failure, but definitely something to consider when you're doing that work. See how I'm doing on time. All right. So what's next for us? So last summer, while the contractors were removing bullfrogs at night, Erica with WSU was actually working on a habitat assessment in the wetlands that we created. And let's see if I bump up a slide here. Basically, all these smaller water bodies north of the slough are different wetlands that we've constructed, and they monitored 26 of those wetlands and found that 10 held water beyond the larval period. This is important because if you do a leopard frog egg transplant, they need the ponds that you put them in need to actually hold water long enough for those to metamorphosize. So they also collected water quality and eDNA samples. And thankfully, all the eDNA samples were negative for bullfrog. So it looks like our bullfrog population is pretty much staying where the water levels are more consistent, and probably the food is easier to come by. One thing to note is several of the ponds did have Pacific tree frog tadpoles, so the habitat is sufficient, at least for those at this point. We estimate that it's been approximately 50 or more years since we've had leopard frogs in the Cusick Valley. So I'm hopeful that in 26 we'll actually be able to move forward around May of 26 with transplants. In 25, WDFW came out and completed a winter habitat assessment. And that, that was positive. The visit also included a new grad student who they're going to have researching winter habitat for northern leopard frogs. And so we're excited to be able to work with her. This summer, we're going to continue, obviously, with bullfrog removal efforts. And again, hopefully next May, we'll be looking at egg transplants in the Trimble ponds that we feel are suitable habitat. 5 minutes here. Let's see, kick this slide, past this slide. So if I did my job, we should have time for questions. Thank you.